What's going on, everybody? LK here, back at it again with another video. And today, as you can see, Dragon Ball Fighter Season 3 tier list. But it's not my tier list. It's way too soon for me to make one, in my opinion. GO1 and Fenrich shared one with us on Twitter, their early opinions on the game. As you can see by this screenshot, for whatever reason, and I'll have a link to the tweet in the description and as a pinned comment, because there's a lot of people asking questions about his opinions and stuff like that. For whatever reason, he took a picture of his computer screen instead of just taking a screenshot on his PC, but whatever, it's fine. I decided to just take that for impact, right? But there's a lot to talk about in the Season 3 tier list. Of course, it's only been out for like 2-3 weeks at this point. But a lot of things have moved around, and I want to talk about like the big takeaways I get from this instead of talking about like the nitty-gritty about each character and why they're there. Now, if the game was like developed, I'd be like, alright, so base Vegeta is number 1 because blah 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 and blah blah blah, and Bardock is number 2 because of blah 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 and blah blah blah. But I'm not there yet, personally. But we can still get a lot from this character ranking. So the first thing we get immediately is that none of the old guard are in top tier. The true old guard. Like, in my personal tier list, I have like S minus, and A plus, right? So the old S were Kibu, GT, and Teen Gohan in order, and then power level gap. So none of those characters are considered the highest rank currently in this patch. For better and for worse. So on the good side, like, you know, people don't like Kibu. Teen Gohan went from being banned to being mad popular. People didn't like him anymore. And in GT, of course, mad people complain about him, even though he does stuff that is nice for the game, okay? All three of those characters are not in this rank. So instead, likely, the short term will be like, it might be the season where we start seeing people complain about, like, Trunks and, like, Frieza. Like, Yamcha, you know, we dealt with Yamcha before. Trunks, Bardock's back, and then base Vegeta. So there's some new characters to complain about. The second thing is that these characters, so like, depending on who you talk to, base Vegeta was like a top 10, top 7 character, Bardock's like top 5, Trunks was like a top 10 character, Broly was like a top 5, top 7 character, and then the other two are Yamcha maybe in the top 10 discussion, but Frieza definitely not. So it's definitely some fresh faces for sure. And then out of these, you can see that Goichi plays 2 of those characters, right? Bardock and Frieza. He's generally been running. The next thing that's pretty big to look at is how big the S minus tier. So the S minus tier is, let's see, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21 characters, right? 21 characters in S minus tier. Before I move on, I usually have to talk about, like, the letters in these tiers actually do mean something. Like, saying that these many characters are S minus tier is a pretty good look. That means they feel like that the characters in this game right now, the majority of characters in this game, are really strong. Like, almost in the group as the best. You know what I mean? So, like, before, and I made a couple videos about this, like, there's a reason why, like, the low tier of this game is generally put as A or B. So your casual player of the game usually says like, oh, low tier is C, like these characters suck. But the more you play, the more you realize like this game doesn't have bad characters. And even when I meme about like, oh my god, Ginyu sucks, like all these characters beat him, like, yeah, but when his game plan gets started, he destroys you, right? And he does mad damage because they keep buffing his combos. He does like 8k by himself or like 8k with 1 assist and stuff. So, despite me, like, memeing about Ginyu being bad, like, I don't actually think he's bad, I just think he's flawed, right? The characters in this game, the weakest characters especially, and especially the historical weak characters, so like Krillin and Beerus and stuff, it's never been, the main issue is never that they're bad, it's that the other characters are too good, or they are too good at beating what those characters do. That's always been the thing. So the fact that, like, right now, basically in his opinion, the lowest tier is A tier, is a pretty good look for the game for Season 3, starting from here. If long term there ends up being like a B tier, it would make sense. The I don't know is kind of like an OS, but like understandable. Like there are times where I'm like, oh, I just don't know anything about this character, so I don't rank them. But overall, that many characters being in S minus tier is pretty much what everyone has been asking for. Like, don't kill characters. Like there are people And some of you might be surprised. There are people who like playing Kid Buu. There are people who like playing Team Gohan. There are people who love GT. I love playing GT. That's my friend. He became my friend last year. I love playing GT. So rather than punish those people for playing them, just take out the busted stuff, leave them alone, and then buff everybody else. And that's pretty much what they did. Like, in my opinion, Team Gohan is like almost exactly the same. He just can't do his super strong strategy of, like, you know, snapping you consistently, universal fuzzying, and setting up for like really quick kills, like 2 touches off snap and stuff like that. Kid Buu is like honestly like 80%, 90% the same. GT has been tweaked a lot, but it's still like really functionable, and his plan was always strong. The EX moves, of course, being tweaked because everything is half a bar now. He can't do Spirit Bomb Oki, but he can still extend combos on the Spirit Bomb. He can still use the EXs mostly the same way. His pressure is still really good. He still has good mix-ups. Less flexible, you know, like he has to rely more on Pogo and Orb, but like he still has really good mix-ups, right? These 3 characters are still very strong, but seeing these other characters in there equally as strong as them is a really good look for the game. It gives you a lot of options. These characters also have a lot of assist options as well, so there's just a lot going on. I think it's a good thing. There are a couple of questionable things just based on what I heard people say. So for example, one of the things I mentioned earlier this week was a Hit. So Hit, I know Hit players aren't that happy with some of his changes, but Goichi and Fenrich have him here. Zamasu is another example where, like, I usually don't feel like Zamasu is very strong, despite him being strong to like casual players or even like some tournament players. Some players in the tournament scene are like, Zamasu's OD, Zamasu's OD, Zamasu's OD. They don't play him. The character has no results. I think the character has always had some flaws, and they always just buff Zamasu the same way they buff Ginyu. But now with like the more assists and new changes, like, I don't know. So that one's a little bit up in the air. Blue Vegeta is another example of a character like that. Like, I generally rate Blue Vegeta pretty low. I usually put him in like B tier, in my opinion. But his changes, you know, I don't know how they affect him yet, personally. So him being up here is a pretty good look as well. So the A tier characters are another thing I want to talk about. So A tier characters, I feel like, have either been like affected by the system changes somewhat. So like Piccolo and 18, I think, are a pretty good example of that. SJ Goku, I mean, I feel like he's still functionable, and like last patch I thought he was A+. Like, people got to the point where they started memeing about him being S tier, but you know, like, just looking at him as a character overall, I thought he was like, his strength was A tier, A+ tier, I mean, and then, like, you know, the beam was like the extra step to put him on a lot of teams, right? So I feel like he only got like slight changes, but like so many of the other characters got buffed that he's kind of here. 16 actually got some positive changes, but you know, rest in peace, my homie. Krillin finally rising up to A tier, no longer a B student. And then Goku Black, same as SJ Goku, which is a interesting timeline. So the characters I don't know about. So 17, I've heard some pretty negative things about him this patch. People saying his Rekka is not safe anymore, and the walking change not really doing anything. Vidal, haven't heard stuff about. Jiren is still up in the air. So like, Jiren was, I don't want to say super popular, but was being played at the beginning of Season 2. But as time goes on, we all know the meme was Jiren sucks, Jiren sucks, Jiren sucks. People stopped playing him. Now, between the system changing to favor him, and he has some different changes now, maybe things will be different. For Beerus, I've heard some pretty positive things about Beerus so far, especially about like his mid-screen knockdowns. Nappa, I haven't really heard anything about. Ginyu, way more mobile, but it's still Ginyu, so he still has like the matchup issues, and a lot of the characters that beat him are all like S-, so like Hit, Zamasu beats him, Vegeta beats him, Gogeta beats him, Super Broly destroys him, you know, I could go on and on, right? But overall, I think it's a pretty good look. Just at a quick glance, it's like 27 characters. Actually, if you want to include the A tier on top of that, that would be like 33 characters are viable for tournaments, which is a lot of characters. I thought last patch it was between 12 and 15. I thought the game was pretty solved in Season 2. We'll see what happens with Season 3. Let me know what you guys think, though, about Goichi's opinion. I have a link to the tweet in the description and as a pinned comment so that you could see how he feels, because he's answering questions in English to the best of his ability. like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time. Peace.